Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we are going to be looking at the wire rope cutters, small diameter wire rope cutters from Knipex. This is part number 9561190. These are actually available in like 3 different models. So you have the standard version, which I have here. Then you have the comfort grip, which is going to be part number 9562190. And then you also have the comfort grip that has a tether hook. That's going to be part number 9562190T for tethering, obviously. But the one we're going to be looking at here today is going to be the standard version. Now, there's a couple of other versions of their wire rope cutters. They're kind of specialized, and then you get into some really big ones. But we're just going to concentrate on these little ones for the time being. Let's get started. All right, so the 190 at the end of that part number specifies the overall length in millimeters. That's 190 millimeters, so that's going to translate to us here in the States to about 7.5 inches, thereabouts. Overall weight is 10.9 ounces, or about 310 grams. Let's talk a little bit about the construction of this particular tool. First of all, this is going to be, the steel that they use in here is a forged chrome vanadium, and they go through what they call a multi-stage oil hardening system. I don't pretend to know all the intricate details of how they temper their steel, but the end result is that they come out with an edge hardness on their cutting edge of 64 HRC, or approximately. They say it's approximately. I guess they don't want to, maybe they have a batch that's just not quite there. So 64 HRC nonetheless. So a few of the features of this: first of all, it's very high leverage cutter. Obviously, from the handle length to the fulcrum, and then the fulcrum to the cutting edge, gives you a lot of, I don't know what the exact is, but measuring it out, it should be about 10 or 12 to 1, something like that. Is hand strength is what you're going to get in your leverage. The Knipex is really good about having the pliers so that the handles are really just, in this particular plier, you're never going to pinch your hand with this thing. So a very good design. The Knipex kind of follows along their whole line of pliers, which is one of the reasons why I like them so much. Now, this also comes with integrated Bowden cable ferrule crimpers. So this is for crimping ferrules on the end of Bowden cables. And Bowden cable is like a throttle body cable. That's one example of a Bowden cable. What it is going to be a flexible cable that's going to be inside of a sleeve, either in steel or in plastic, whatever have you. So it's used in automotive and small engine. Bicycles use it in their brake cables, stuff like that. So that's what these crimpers are for. They're for crimping on the ferrules of the ends of those Bowden cables. It is spring-loaded too, which is a great feature, and then it has that little thumb release too. So to lock it, you just rotate the thumb release up, and now they're locked in place, and whenever you want to use them, just rotate it down, and now you have full access to them, which I like. I like that system. I always hated the pliers that have that stupid catch on the bottom to keep the pliers closed. I like that thumb roll kind of thing. It's just a cleaner look. It just speaks to the engineering of Knipex. Their engineering is just outstanding. They really are. Let's talk a little bit about the capacity, the cutting capacity of these pliers. So on the handle, you'll notice that it says piano 2.5 millimeter. So that is like spring wire. That's going to be some of the hardest wire you're ever going to encounter. I don't have any of that. Don't ever use it. But the capacity for that is about 2.5 millimeters. Now in Imperial, that's going to be about 3/32, more or less. The next hardest level up is what we're going to be dealing with today, and that's going to be stranded wire. That's going to be considered like your hard wires, and the capacity for this particular tool for this type of wire is about 4 millimeters, or in Imperial it's about 5/32. So just a touch over an 1/8 inch. I actually think you could probably get away with cutting 3/16 with this. They kind of underrate it just a little bit, but it's only rated for 5/32. The next stage up would be like nails. You're going to be in your steels that are softer steels, not hard steel. Then your rating jumps to about 5 millimeters, or 3/16 of an inch. And then finally, if you get into coppers and plastics, aluminums, soft wire, you're going to be about 7 millimeters, or a little over 1/4 of an inch. I think it's either right at 1/4 or 9/32, something like that. So as you go up in different levels of hardness, or down, I should say, your capacity is going to increase. But for your hardwire capability, it's going to be 2.5 millimeters as stated. Before we get into cutting some stuff, there's something I got to bring up. You know, whenever I go and I'm looking at a particular tool, I usually jump online like most people and watch a couple of this types of videos of, you know, reviews of different tools. And one of the reviews I came across for this tool just kind of made me shake my head. And it came specifically with the Bowden crimpers down here. The gentleman was using those to crimp on, and I have them in the trailer, but they're just so far back there that I just can't get to them right now. But he was using an hourglass ferrule that is for a swaging tool, and he was trying to crimp it with these and saying that it was capable of crimping those. Well, that is so far from the truth. I had to bring it up. That's not what this is used for. As we stated before, these are for ferrules for Bowden cables. So these are not high capacity, you know, make wire loops with your stranded wire. It's just not what they're made for. For that type of application, you need to use a swaging tool. And some of the best out there are Tyler tool. You know what? There's a video out there. I think it was E-rigging on YouTube. I'm going to link their video in for anyone that's interested to know a little bit more about swaging and the types of tools that you need for them. You should check their video out because I can't do it justice like they do. They are really, really good at explaining the swaging process and why you have to use those particular tools in order to accomplish it. So why do you want to use a cable cutting tool or a wire rope cutter, specific wire rope cutter to cut wire rope, when all of these tools will actually cut this particular wire or this particular cable? Well, it's in the design of the wire rope cutters themselves. So in the jaws, first of all, these are bypass cutters or shears. And the way that they're designed, they trap the wire. So you'll notice they have, when you're closing them up, they have that little V, and they actually force the wire down against the fulcrum point, or as close to the fulcrum as possible. And what that does is that keeps the wire from splaying out on you or fanning out, where all these other types of cutters will actually cut it. You can get into the little mini bolt cutters here, which are a great tool, by the way. They're just not designed for cutting wire rope because they use an anvil type cutter, and they're made for different stuff. They're not made for stranded cable. Same thing with the diagonal cutters. They'll cut it, but they won't do as clean or as effective a job as the wire rope cutters. And the same thing with the Klein Linesman's pliers. They'll get through it, but they also will leave the end splayed, and we're going to demonstrate that a little bit. So with the Knipex wire rope cutters, we can go right up here on the end. We can get real close, actually, and this is going to make a bit of a mess because on the back side here, all this is just going to fly apart. But on the inside here, where we're wanting to cut it back, it's just going to be nice and tight. There's not going to be any splaying whatsoever. So we'll just set that, and you can see how clean that cut is on there, and that's because of the design of the wire rope cutters. Now if we do the same thing, in fact we'll do it with all these, we can cut all of this, but you see immediately as soon as we press on that, you can see how that fans out. It'll get through it. It's actually harder with these bolt cutters. It'll eventually get through it, but it's just not. You see the type of job it does. And if we go to the diagonal cutters, it's pretty much the same. We'll go a little further down on this one. It'll get through it, but it's not as clean. Now, it did fine there because we left quite a bit of cable out there, but if we try to do the same thing out here on the end, it does exactly the same thing. It splays out. That's because all of this types of cutters, these anvil types of cutters, are not forcing the cable back into the fulcrum. And the same thing with the Linesman pliers. Linesman pliers are a little tough to get through stuff like this, but it'll eventually get through it. Of course, you had to put quite a... It went through it. Now, it didn't leave too bad of an edge there, but you can see that the cable is unraveling there. If we go back into the Knipex wire rope cutters, Let me get my hand placed right, set it down, and it's just super, super, super clean. I'm going to demonstrate kind of what happens using a stranded 10 gauge copper wire so we can visualize this a little bit better. Okay, with this 10 gauge wire, it's going to be the same overall process, except this is going to be super easy. When we cut through there, it leaves it nice and round because it's forcing everything to center. It just makes a better cut. And actually with these, you can get right out here on the edge if you wanted to and still make a super fine cut with those. It's just impressive, you know, what cable cutters will actually do. I mean, it's a matter of getting the right tool for the right job. Now, if we go into the little bolt cutters, they'll cut it, and they'll cut it just fine in soft wire, but you can see the difference. It kind of pinches it down, and you're going to get the same type of cut out of each one of these tools because they're not designed for you know, for cutting cable. Now, it's all these will get through this just perfect because it's all soft wire, it's all copper wire. But the diagonal cutters, you can see it pinches them down a little bit further, and the Kleins will do the same thing. It's maybe not quite as pronounced on the Kleins, but they use an anvil cutter as well in Linesman's pliers, and so that's the type of cut you get. Now this is actually why I prefer to have a bypass cutter or a shear cutter as opposed to an anvil type. Now, one of the best tools I have actually are these Klein hybrids. And they're actually really, really good, but they also incorporate that same type of cutter. So we're going to get pretty much the same cut out of these. She's going to flatten it out a little bit. Where if we go into these Milwaukees, which, by the way, these things are crap, but they're good for this demonstration. And you'll notice here, this is what happens when you have an idiot that decides he's going to use soft wire cutters on 1/8 inch cable. Just for reference, that idiot was not me. So, but it does have bypass cutters, and they're actually pretty nice. And when we cut through here, this is going to give us the same type of cut that we get with the wire rope cutters, because it's forcing everything to center because they're curved back into it. They actually make really, really good stranded copper wire cutters. But you know, I do like the Klein hybrid. They're very good pliers, extremely good pliers. As a matter of fact, I do a lot of electrical work with these pliers, but they do not make quite as clean a cut on copper wire. They do a lot better on solid wire, though. I'll give them that. Again, the added benefit of these cable cutters is that, or these wire rope cutters, is that no matter, I mean, we could get in there within like 3/16 of an inch, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, something like real close. If we had a splay cable on the end and just hit it one time, and they're going to leave a super nice cut on cable. And it's because they're designed for that task. I use these a lot. In fact, I just had to get these new because someone has lost my other ones, or they grew legs or something, which really ticked me off. But we use these a lot when we are back hanging ducting. So we'll have duct runs that get suspended with this type of cable, and that's why we end up using ferrules and swage ferrules, and we do a lot of swage work on the job site. So again, the gentleman that said that this is a swager or can be used as a swage tool, no, oh my goodness, don't ever do that, please. Get the right tool for the job. That is not a swage tool. These are Bowden crimpers, and that's all they are. They're for lightweight stuff. For a true crimper or swage tool, you're going to have a lot of force to swage that properly. Just if you get a chance, check out that e-rigging swaging video. It'll explain everything. They're really, really good at explaining the whole swaging process. Well, this has been a better look at the Knipex wire rope cutters 9561 190. These are very, very good wire rope cutters, and it's one of those tools that I personally cannot do without. My name's Ben. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.